Hello and welcome to Bondi Radio. We're at beautiful Bondi Beach this morning and I'm taking you through your creative journey. Every Tuesday morning now, 9 a.m. or thereabouts, your creative journey. And I'm joined today by Monica Davidson.
Hello.
Monica is going to fill us in on how we can survive as creatives. Monica is an author, a filmmaker, and a creative industry expert. So this is what people like me need. I didn't meet you before I had to sell my house.
Oh,
but
sorry.
That's okay, Monica.
That happens a lot, actually.
And I should introduce myself, I guess. I'm making a lot of assumptions here. I'm Jane Turner, and I'm also an author, not a filmmaker. I run book writing workshops for people to get them very, very clear on their message, and it takes them deep into their heart as well. And that's the secret sauce of this whole business, isn't it? You know, we call it business. Yeah. It's about actually a lot more than that, but we'll get into that. So, Monica, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I was late.
Oh, who's late, mate?
I'm the reason for the delayed start, so apologies for that.
Problem. It's no problem. It happens to the best of us. So, look, you have so many exciting things to tell us about. There's this film of yours that's going to be out in the cinemas.
Next
you just
year,
got some
hopefully.
funding, so this is going to happen. I think, why don't we start there, and then I definitely want to hear from you about the Creative Plus business, which is your business end that has got you to a place where you can make a film, get a film out into the world and distribute it. Yep. And I know a lot of our listeners and our viewers are going to want to know all about how you do something like that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a big story, I suppose. I have been making films all my life, though, so it's not a new experience for me. So I made my first short film in 1989, I think. So I have been doing this for a long time.
Okay.
And I chose to pursue a commercial path. So I went to university in the late 80s. I studied film. I made a few films while I was at university. I had every intention of getting a job, but of course I graduated in 1991 when there weren't any. So there weren't any jobs. There weren't any jobs for like so-called normal people, let alone people like me who only had creative credentials, you know. So I sort of fell into freelancing.
Got it.
And freelance crew work because, you know, I could drive and I'm strong. So, and I was willing to do whatever needed to be done.
So that you really started at the grassroots.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm not kidding. I think being willing to drive and lift heavy things is probably how most people get stuck. Okay. I wish it was a bit more creative, but no. So, you know, I've been directing and producing film and video and television for 25 years. Yeah. But Handbag is a real labour of love.
Yes. Now, this is Monica's film, and this is going to be an iconic Sydney film. I think it's going to be on the curriculum.
Oh, God, Jane, that's exciting.
Mandatory for kids in Sydney to know what a great city it is that they live in.
Well, I hope so.
And this is part of the Sydney story, but you need to say more because I've now probably, you know, got people's interest and they still don't know what the hell it's about. Handbag. Who's interested in a handbag?
All right. Well, Handbag is not, in fact, about purses, although that seems to be what people think it's about. So Handbag is about a woman who is culturally known as a fag hag. And I'm careful about saying that word because it is offensive to some people.
Well, many derogatory connotations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The F part of that sequence is the part that people have the problem with. I personally have a problem with the hag half of that, but you know, I think it's pretty much a term that offends everybody. And that term has always been used to describe a woman who has a large number of gay male friends. Now, I am such a woman, so is my mother, so was my grandmother. So I'm a third generation fag hag. The film started off looking at that sort of unique and quirky aspect of my family because like most families, I didn't know that was weird until
that's right.
I went out into the world and found out that not everybody had a grandmother with a gay best friend. But over the years...
Or maybe they did, but
well,
they
maybe
didn't know.
that's right. But over the years, particularly due to the changing political climate, the conversation or the movie has changed. So it is still about straight women who have gay best friends, but now it's about the fag hag as unlikely gay activist.
Because of the really bloody weird times we're in at the moment.
Really,
an
I know.
absurd array of conversations taking place.
Absolutely,
Yes.
but I think it's actually always been the case. I think that
guess so.
straight women, certainly my mother and my grandmother as well, straight women have provided support, backup, at the moment, political weight.
Sure.
A hand to hold when you walk down the street so you don't get bashed. My grandmother was a beard, which means that she was a disguise for a gay man.
Oh, got it. Okay.
That's where the term comes from.
Yes.
So a beard is a woman who poses as a wife or girlfriend of a gay man in order to protect him, and the word beard, of course, infers that she's a disguise of some kind, which I think is hilarious. So the film is about that. The film is about the 4 generations of women in my family, including my own kids, who kind of represent the now. But it's not actually really about us. It's about that larger conversation of how straight people have to be valuable allies to our gay friends, because without us, it's going to be very hard to affect change. As I always say, women didn't get the vote because we wanted it. We got the vote because men gave it to us.
Yeah.
And Indigenous people didn't get to be treated as human beings because they wanted to. It was because a referendum happened and the rest of Australia said yes.
Right.
And marriage equality won't happen because gay people want it. It'll happen because everybody wants it. So
it's a numbers game.
it is. So I think straight allies, if we're just talking about the LGBTIQ community, I think straight allies are phenomenally important. But for me, it's also a feminist issue because women, as usual, have been in the background, beavering away silently, not getting the recognition that they deserve. So that was another little kind of part of the movie that I wanted to explore.
Got it. And from the background perspective as well, you would have had to invest initially, personally, not only time.
And money.
Yes. I know, exactly.
And emotion.
And, oh my God.
And creativity.
Yes.
I think I've often described the movie as my 4th child. I wanted to leave home now. I'm over it. I'm so over
Fair
it.
enough. Yes, you're at that. They've graduated.
Yeah.
They just haven't left yet.
Yeah, get out. I know, well, and I mean, that's the torture of the creative process, really, isn't it?
And so what happens now at this stage? Because you've got the guts of the film.
Yep, film's finished. Yep.
Film is finished. Yeah.
And we just crowdfunded what turns out to be, I think, just under $45,000 to get us through the next phase, which is quite boring, unfortunately. All the sexy stuff has already happened. We've filmed it, we went to the States with it, we've cut it, we've put everything together. Now we have the boring part, which is clearing licenses for music and video footage and doing a sound mix and a colour grade and actually preparing her for release and global domination. So basically at the moment she's ready to go. She's still wearing a jammies. She hasn't put her face on, so we've just got to tizzy her up and make sure that we're doing the right thing legally, and then we can get her out there.
Yay. Oh, wow.
I know.
Wow.
I know.
And your previous films, are they in circulation?
Some of them are, yeah. So quite a lot of the work that I did prior to this was commercial or in-house, so that's not. And also I have the either fortune or misfortune, I'm not sure what it is yet, to have been a filmmaker during the turnover from analog to digital.
Oh, yes.
And in terms of digital, from sort of standard definition to high definition. So my commercial film company started wrapping up in about 2010, which is when high definition started to come in. So quite a lot of my work, weirdly, just looks too horrible to be out there in circulation. It looked really great at the time, but now
our tastes and our expectations change, don't we? And it's about getting cut through with your message.
Absolutely. But also I think with a lot of my films I've just released them into the world on YouTube or Vimeo because you know, they're made and they're out there, and I'd rather them be seen. So I made a film 6 years ago, I think, called Lesbians on the Loose. So I like to stay inside that.
Oh, I love it.
Well, I do like this. Yeah,
it's the art of the title, though.
Oh yeah,
it's really important.
That's really hard to get right. You know. Well, that one I cheated because it was a documentary about a magazine called Lesbians on the Loose, which is now just called Lottle. And the film was about this notion of lesbian community. So obviously I like making films about women, and I like making films in the queer space. But I tend to only make films about women, so I'm quite, you know, that does take me into all kinds of different nooks and crannies, so to speak. But so Lesbians on the Loose was about this idea of lesbian community as kind of enshrined by this magazine, because it was one of the first and only magazines for lesbian women in Australia, and it still exists. But I just sort of, again, from an outsider's point of view, thought it was quite interesting to explore the idea of lesbian community, because I don't feel as a straight woman that I'm in a community.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I don't go, I'm automatically going to be friends with all of you because you're also straight women, you know. So I just was sort of curious about the notion of, does sexuality make a community? And is that a good thing if it does, and or is it a limiting thing? Because I think in the beginning, when Lesbians on the Loose first came out, women needed a community to keep them safe. But then as lesbianism or being gay becomes more socially acceptable, particularly here in Sydney, then community can sometimes be quite limiting. Because then it's about, well, this is our community and these are the rules of our community, and if you don't fit in with the rules, then, you know, you're not really welcome here. I just found the whole thing quite fascinating.
It really is.
So that film is on YouTube, and I just released it so that people could watch it for free, because I'd rather my films were getting watched.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know? So hopefully, though, with Handbag, with that, because Lesbians on the Loose is a short film, it's only half an hour long, so I hope with Handbag it will get a bigger life. So fingers crossed.
We'll watch this space. Definitely watch this space. Now, what I'm curious about then is, how did the business, you just became really good at this kind of, in this territory, and you started from a perspective of wanting to help other people just like you, or how did the actual business come about, and just a little bit about what you actually do?
It's kind of you to think that it was altruistic. I don't know if it necessarily was.
It could have been desperation, whatever it was.
Well, my parents are both creatives, so I actually grew up in a very creative household. My mother is an artist and my father was a musician, so growing up, creativity and creative expression was just the way that we lived our lives.
That was done.
And so it never really occurred to me to pursue any other path. And really the biggest question for me was, will I write or make films? And in the end, I decided to do both. But so I was really blessed in that when I said to my mother, I want to be a writer, I want to be a filmmaker, her response was, well, okay, I mean, you're already doing it, so that seems to make sense.
It wasn't just go and get a law degree first or something like that. Get a nice job in the public service.
That's right.
So you've got something to fall back on.
Exactly. Nice, exactly. No fallback position required. She just sort of went, well, you're clever, I'm sure you'll figure it out, which was nice of her.
What a message for a kid.
I know.
That's a brilliant message.
And I didn't again realise what a blessing that was until long after I left. But my mother was an artist, but she was also teacher trained. And as I was growing up, she kind of alternated between teaching and artwork and freelanced, what I would now classify as freelance. And she did that until I was about 10 or 11. And I thought that was fantastic.
Yes.
Every day was different, and she was doing all this stuff. I had no idea how much economic stress she was under until much later. Yeah. So I didn't go and get a job. I never got a job.
You've never had a job?
I've never had a job.
We're such an odd match in that regard, because I've never not had a job, and in fact never not had a job in the government. I was one of the public servants who was in a nice safe space right up to the age of 52 when I was made redundant, and then I was pretty kind of up shit creek, frankly,
that's
there
kind
for
of
a while.
A birth by fire. Whereas I have never done it.
Never had a job, claim to fame.
I don't know.
Go, Monica.
People used to look at me really strangely when I said I'd never have a job. They go, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, never had a job, So when my friends were, as teenagers, when my friends were getting work at Woolies or, McDonald's or whatever it might be, I started making jewellery out of bits and bobs that I found. Yeah. I started singing in a band as a backup singer. I made T-shirts for that band. I just basically just turned my hand to whatever I could think of. I even used to sell my signature because I'm a pain.
It's just a naturally creative way to look at the world way to approach the business of making a living.
Sure. Plus, I was a wanker. I mean, only wankers really sell their signature when they're like 15.
Who bought it?
Oh, my classmates. I know. I'm a very, very good salesperson, Jane. This is the thing that I didn't know about myself. I can be very persuasive. So I know. So I like I said before, I went to university expecting, well, two things. One, I went to university expecting it to be free, and then it wasn't, which was a bit of a shock. And then I went to university expecting to walk out of there with a job. And I know that, anyone under the age of 30 who's listening to this must be rolling around on the floor. But really, in the 80s...
day, there was an expectation.
Yeah, and that had been the case for our parents. So both of my parents went to university, which they didn't pay for, and then they walked out of there and got a job, So, you only know what your parents kind of tell you when you're a kid.
Yes.
That was my assumption. That was everybody's assumption. So I got a film degree. I did really well at university and walked out of there with no job. So, any young people watching, millennials watching, feel free to be amused by that because it is ridiculous. So I fell into freelancing. I had been freelancing at high school, so I started writing while I was still at high school.
Okay.
I got published. I'm from Newcastle originally, and I got published in the Newcastle Morning Herald, and I got published a few times while I was still at high school. Right. And so when I was at university, I kind of kept freelancing because it was all I really knew how to do, and I kept making jewellery and I kept singing in bands and I slinged beers every now and then for cash if I had to, I just kind of cobbled it together.
You did. Yeah.
And I did not choose to be freelance. And I always tell people that, particularly young people, because I know that now after 30 years I come across as very entrepreneurial, but it was not my intention. No. Yeah. I do think I had a gift for it, but it was mostly just necessity.
Sure.
I would have loved a job. I didn't avoid employment because I'm an anarchist. I avoided employment because there weren't any jobs. Like actual
jobs avoided you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like even nice normal young people with like law degrees and stuff couldn't get jobs. And so I'm looking at that going, well, you're ticking all the boxes and you're not getting anywhere.
Yes.
So I'll just freelance, go on and off the dole, which we used to call the arts grant.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't get harassed or anything.
Well, you got a bit harassed, but not as much as it is now.
Yes.
But I used to annoy them because I'd go on it for 4 weeks and then I'd go off it and work on a film for a couple of weeks.
So much paperwork.
I know. One woman actually did say to me after about a year of that, she said, "Stop telling me when you're working." And I'm like, she's just like, because there was no records to check. That's not like they could look in your bank account or anything, So I'd say, I'm going to go off it for another 3 weeks because I'm working on a TV show, and she'd go, "Stop telling me, I don't care."
This is gorgeous.
I'm not going to throw her under the bus.
No, that's right.
But then I think I would not consider myself to have been freelancing particularly effectively. But in 1994, is that right? 94, beginning of 94, so end of 93, 94, I directed what was originally a TV movie and then evolved into a feature film.
Okay.
And that was a phenomenal experience from a creative point of view, to be given that much control over a project. I didn't write it, but I was directing it, and it was just mind-boggling how great that was. I realised that I'd fallen into exactly the place that I was supposed to be, except I was only 23, 24, so I was I was kind of younger than I thought I was going to be when that goal finally was realised. But to put it bluntly, I was massively screwed as a result of that experience. So I didn't get paid. I didn't get paid properly. The producer did a shocking job of, manipulating that situation.
Got it.
I was exploited. A lot of people on the show were exploited. And due to various ridiculous things, the film was never released.
Oh, no, okay.
So that's when I thought I had been under the mistaken impression that directors had a certain degree of power on films and on television programs.
Mm-hmm.
But that experience taught me that the person who has the money is in fact the person with the power.
Okay.
I learned a really important lesson about power and money, and I realised that if I was going to have the autonomy that I wanted, I was going to have to learn how to do power and money. Because I didn't know how to do those things. I didn't know anything about money, didn't know anything about power, and by that I mean not just leadership but also legal requirements and things like that.
Yes.
I was ignorant.
Yeah, okay.
I'd been lurching from one job to the next without any kind of clear plan. I didn't know anything about marketing.
Okay.
So I decided that if I was going to continue to work in the creative industries, and if I never wanted to be exploited again, which I did not, then I had to learn. So I did.
How did you learn?
I learned by making every possible mistake you can make.
So there was more
and
to
by
come,
being really, really annoying. Yes. So I knew that I wanted to start my own business. I'd already been freelancing for 7 years by that stage, so it wasn't an uncomfortable idea, but I had no idea. So I, again, because it was pre-internet, kids, this wasn't time.
Oh,
I used to just go into government offices and say, I know nothing, tell me everything. And I was just,
you were like a sponge.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm journalist trained, so I just treated it like an academic exercise. Okay, I know nothing, tell me everything. Yeah, and I just tried to absorb as much as possible, made every possible mistake there was to make. Screwed everything up and fixed it again. I mean, that's the thing. That's what I say to people now. Creative people are problem solvers. That's what we do.
Yes.
We solve problems. We overcome challenges. We think outside the square. I mean, creative people don't even have a square.
That's
every day is a new adventure in what am I going to do today. And that's the perfect attitude for entrepreneurialism. Because if you don't know, you find out. And again, I think that I probably had a little bit of skill in business, but everything I know, I learned.
There are two kinds of people in the world. If you don't know, you find out, or if you don't know, you stop.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was
you give
the
up
first
maybe
one.
to be mean about it.
Well, yeah.
In terms of the language, you give up.
I don't think that business is impossible for smart, creative people to learn. It's just really, really boring. It's so boring. Okay. Everything that I learned was just super boring. And I always say, it's a bit like housework. Okay. There's no actual intrinsic value in it, except for avoiding what happens if you don't do it.
Nasty diseases and such.
So if you're a creative person and you want to be autonomous, then yes, business is boring and maths is hard and nothing about it is going to be fun. What's fun is financial and creative autonomy.
Yeah, you betcha. So you've then at least condensed the amount of pain and time. I'm assuming that it takes people to come
for other
across.
people.
Yeah, to come across this. So it's that getting your head around the power and money and relationship therein.
That's right. Well, what gave me the shits after I learned it all was how easy it was to learn. And how it wasn't actually difficult to learn. What was difficult was accessing the information. So, and I never actually intended for creative industry to become my focus. I had intended to be a writer and a filmmaker all my life, and I will be. But I learned, and I applied what I'd learned, and I mucked it up, and then I fixed it, and then things started to work, and then other people started to ask me, well, how did you do that? And I realised that what it might have taken me 6 months to learn, I could share with other people in 3 hours.
Yes.
Because it was just like, well, here's point A and here's point B, and I draw the connective tissue between it. Whereas when I had to do it, I went, well, there's point A. I'm not entirely sure where point B is, and I'm just going to go, and I might get there, So.
Okay. So this is really cool. You saw a need, you filled the need, and now this is making a big difference in the world for people. So what's the main? Is there one main problem that people will come see you about?
I think the overarching thing that I see people struggling with, and that's whether they are students or emerging people through to established businesses, is just this feeling that they don't know what they're doing and that they are somehow idiots because they don't know what they're doing.
Yes.
Which again, you can't call yourself an idiot if you've never learned.
Exactly.
You know, I don't consider myself to be an idiot because I can't ride a horse. I've never ridden a horse. I don't know how to ride a horse, and I'm reasonably sure that if you teach me, I'll probably pick it up. You know, but I don't go around beating myself up for it because I've never had the opportunity. So the large majority of creative people, and this is globally, I think, who are trying to make a living out of it, whether it's freelancing or running a business or whatever, they're just making it up as they go along. And when they make mistakes, I think it's because they're idiots. Well, I don't think that's true. I just think that people need to be taught. And I suppose the other part of that is I also see a lot of people who struggle with not being taken seriously.
Okay, yeah.
Because the arts are not well respected as a professional choice. And creative industry is not yet respected as an economic choice, although it should be.
Yes.
And so people really struggle with that. They struggle with being taken seriously externally by family and friends, but they also struggle with taking themselves seriously.
Yes, yes. I was thinking as you're talking that you're not the kind of person who would ever need my services. The people who come to see me to get their book written, yes, I help them with things about, well, how do you start and what do you do next and how do you get published and then how do you make that work for you in terms of a business. You know, most of my people are trying to transition out of paid employment into, you know, being a coach or being a consultant or a speaker or whatever it happens to be. So, you know, the easy part is the where do you start, what do you do next? But the other part, again, which isn't that hard either, is how are you getting the information out of your head and onto the page. But what people are really stumbling around about is how do I feel okay about standing in front of my ideas? What makes me so special? How do I have the right? You know, what if people think I'm stupid? They don't come to me and say this. What if people hate it and nobody buys my book? But that's the fear that's running underneath it. Whereas you're way, way, way in a minority in terms of just that, you know, well, too bad if I fall off the horse or whatever the creative equivalent of that is. You know, it's not my fault. I've done my best and I'm going to learn from this and won't fall off the horse again.
Well, again, I cannot overestimate the importance of having supportive parents was, because by the time I got to my teenage years, when I started saying out loud that I was going to have a creative life, professional life, I mean, I'd always assumed that I would, but I started sharing that information with teachers or with careers advisors, and I was appalled to be shut down, you know. But it wasn't just my parents, because they didn't particularly push me in terms of the economic viability of it. They just could see that I loved to write and that I was creative, and they, you know, they just wanted me to be happy, and they knew that would make me happy, you know. But the one person that I think really shifted gears for me was my teacher when I was in 5th grade. I know this sounds mad, but my teacher in 5th grade, Mr. Roberts, recognised that I could write, and I had been told by other teachers that I could write. You know, it was just a talent that I was born with and did nothing to deserve. But I'd written a short story, and he was reading the short story, and then he said to me, "You're a really good writer," and I, you know, smiled and was happy that I was getting praise from my teacher. And then he said, and I must have been, 8 or 9? He said, "You know, you could make a living out of that if you wanted to."
Wow.
And I said, "What?" Like, it had never occurred to me that writing books was a job. And he said, "You know, you're a really good writer, and you're such a good writer that you could turn that into a job if you wanted to." And I thought he was sort of joking. And I said, "Well, you know, haha, Mr. Roberts, you know, when I release my first book, I'll dedicate it to you." And he laughed. And I did. I did actually dedicate my first book to Mr. Roberts. What was your first book? So my first full book was Freelancing for Dummies.
Because I was going to ask you about that if that wasn't your first book.
Yeah, no, I contributed to anthologies before, and I'd written lots and lots of investigative journalist pieces. But that was my first book by myself.
Wow.
So yeah, I dedicated it to Mr. Roberts, and the great thing about I know, right? Well, the great thing about growing up in Newcastle is that everybody knows everybody. So I was able to contact the school, and he had only just recently retired. And so I was able to send a copy to him via the school.
Wow.
And about a week later, he rang me, crying. He was crying. He just said,
but
you know...
how many other kids did he enable,
Yeah.
you know, to think a different life for themselves?
Well, he would not have thought that... I mean, he didn't even remember saying that to me. And I just said, you changed the direction of my whole life. And I think that's why... I mean, I started teaching what I knew because I needed money. And I was good at teaching, so it was a good way to make money. It was better than slinging beer.
Yep.
But I still teach because of that, because of Mr. Roberts, and because of my mother. I'm, you know, the teachers in my life who've just given me so much, and my mentors. Those little nuggets of information that change the direction, change the course of your direction, and switch you in a different direction if you're willing to listen and observe and absorb.
It's true.
And I am quite excited about being that person in somebody else's life.
Yay, yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that where you said that you were prepared to listen and absorb, the people that come to me, at somewhere along the track, they've listened and absorbed the other message.
Yeah.
And it's often about, no, you're good at maths or something like that. In other words, you're not good at writing. And so they come and they want to package up their stuff. They want to be known as the person who does this. But they freeze up around the idea. All of a sudden the words don't come because they've been triggered. Yeah. They go right back to when they were 8. And they felt foolish and, you know, the I can't came into their language in relation to writing.
It's really saddens me because for any creative endeavour, whether it's writing or drawing or painting or dancing or whatever, all children can do it.
Of course they can.
You know, if you get a bunch of 4-year-olds together, they'll write and sing and dance and create mad plays and build crazy houses, and they're just the most creative individuals on the planet.
Yep.
And where does it start to die? You know, between 4 and 14, something happens to kids that makes them feel like that's not cool anymore. And I think that's just really sad. I think that the disrespect for creativity and the lack of understanding about how important art and culture and creativity is, it's actually ruining our chances at an early age to have a creative life, even if you're not going to be a creative business owner, even if you're not going to be that. But even, you know, every single piece of data that's available is saying that our economic future is completely dependent on creativity. That the traditional models of economic enrichment, like agriculture and mining and manufacturing, are all going to be taken away, either by, you know, political change or by robots. So that means that, you know, the gap that's going to be left, you know, in this new industrial revolution is going to be for people who know how to be creative and access their creativity, and who are brave enough to say, why don't we do it this way? And creativity is not just about painting and drawing and writing.
Absolutely.
Although those are incredibly important things.
Yes.
Creativity is that larger thing of going, well, why does it have to be that way? You know, I always say that creative professionals, and you and I both included, we didn't really ever grow out of that bit of your life where you have to ask why all the time. You know, your 3-year-olds ask why all the time, and they're really annoying.
Yeah.
But why? But why? But why? I think creative people kind of keep going.
Well, do you know what I did? I did grow out of that.
Oh, no.
I had a massive kind of turnaround.
Oh, no. But now you're back. Now you're back to the why.
Now I'm back. Well, but why? Because, you know, what was interesting was that the messages that I heard, you know, either in terms of the actual language used or just in terms of the message, was that to be safe was to not, you know, don't be a show pony. Don't have tickets on yourself. Don't be...
No one told me that ever.
Yeah, you see, no, these actual words, and told with the best intentions in the world, the best intentions of, you know, you don't want to be seen to be up yourself. You know, you won't have any friends, no one will like you, and all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
So, and it was just the way it was at the time as well. You know, little girl in suburban Canberra and one industry town. So I did what you do, and I got my first job was actually pushing the mail trolley around the tax department.
Wow, that is right in the guts of the
was,
public service.
That was really, you can break a kid's spirit like that.
Absolutely.
I've managed to survive. I remember I did, this was the one really brave thing I did do when I came home and said to my dad, oh, do you know what, I'm going to quit that job, it's awful. And it nearly broke his heart. It really, really did. And I did quit that job, but then I got another one really quickly at a much higher level. Yeah. I don't know how that, now that I think back on it, I don't know how that pulled that off. But I pulled it off, so then I was in the aviation department and all these, and I rattled around for decades.
Wow,
but I moved to Sydney, and of course, what did I do? Then I got a job in the government again, and I just, like I say, rattled around for decades and got to a really good spot. You know, I was at the Powerhouse Museum, so these are the jobs that, you know, graduates coming out of uni, they're the jobs that they want.
Yeah.
And that they, you know, it was very, very hard to get one of those jobs. You've kind of got to work your way up, and someone's got to die, and you've got to be able to pull something off somewhere. Whereas I think I got in on time, and I'd had a couple of coups in relation to previous jobs, so I looked good on paper. But anyway, I'd have been there till retirement age, but for the fact that, you know, I got shoved out. At the same time, I might say the big reality check, at a time when, you know, this sort of kind of covert operation was going on about moving the Powerhouse out to Parramatta. So none of us knew about it at the time, but all of a sudden we had to cut the staffing in the place by a third. So I didn't have to take it so personally. That's why I always mention that it wasn't just me who got pushed out. I wasn't effective. But of course, then all that inner chatter goes on about, but I was found out. You know, maybe I never was any good anyway in the first place, and I had this massive kind of baptism of fire. But in reality, you know, if I do what my husband calls going down the woo-woo path a little bit, which that was when the questioning started coming back. You know, it was about that I had to get the push to find out I had the parachute. Yeah. And that, you know, in fact, there was a whole lot of capability inside of me that in my case, I had to be just split right open by the cold, hard facts of the matter, that it ain't so bloody easy for women in their 50s to then get another job.
Well, that's the irony, I think, of my life, is that, you know, I and my mum, again, I owe everything to her. You know, she's always been able to just put such a great perspective on it. You know, she's often said, you know, that the criticism or the complaint or the concern about my life choices is that I'm going to end up in an insecure environment. And I have absolute job security. Absolute job security. Unless I make myself redundant, I will always be able to make money and find work. You know, I mean, I've had my job. You know, I ran my film production company for 20 years. Most people don't stay at a job for 20 years. I did the same job, literally, for 20 years. And now I've given myself this job as a creative industries expert, and I will probably do this for 20 years. You know?
So I've got absolute security.
Yeah, of course you do. Unless you sack yourself, Jane, you'll be fine.
Right. This is this is good. But the thing about that whole the questioning of the why, and this kind of go a little bit Simon Sinek here.
Yeah.
If you want to hear a guy talking about the why, then
you've got to circle. You got
to look at YouTube for Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
But that whole thing of what I had to find was what mattered most. What mattered most when everything was taken away.
Yeah.
And you know, the business head in me was still running the show at the time, and it was okay, so write a book, because, you know, if I'm going through menopause anyway, as I was, if I'm out of work at that age, if I'm just generally feeling crap, what would it feel like if I started to look after myself? What would it feel like if I started to, you know, exercise some radical self-care? And then, you know, I started then writing all of that down, and the whole writing for healing business started to make a lot of sense too. But I started writing it all down. Ultimately, it became a book called Thrive in Midlife. I then, you know, got way the hell out of my own way. And this was a big journey to be okay about the fact that here I was, in all my kind of perfect imperfection, saying to the world, well, here I am, here's what I have to offer. Take it or leave it. that bit, the take it or leave it, was a really big breakthrough for me. And then to just be able to be relaxed around the results. And they say in coaching, let go of the, let go of the outcome.
Yeah.
Let go of, don't be hanging on that. Just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And come from a good place. And if it's your why, well then it's going to start making sense and it's going to start working. And this really has for me.
And I think it's important for self-employed people in particular to still stay on top of that, because I also employed the why when I closed my production company.
Oh,
Yes. I think a lot of people were very surprised that happened because it took an enormous amount of effort to start it, even though it had a baptism from kind of exploitation. It then became a thriving little business and one that I ran while I was having babies and while I went through a divorce, and it kind of became my rock for that whole period of time. And I made some really great projects that I was really proud of, and I made a whole lot of shit that I don't have to share with anyone, and I made ads and I made documentaries and I made basically anything. And then I closed it, and I think for young filmmakers in particular that always just seems like such a shock. Why would you close a business that you were doing well in, that you'd spent 20 years of your life on? I was essentially living the dream. And the reason why I closed it, I had a lot of reasons why, but one of the main reasons was that, because I couldn't remember why I was doing it anymore. I was getting up and I was, getting dressed and I was taking my children to school, and then I was heading into my little home office, or, heading into clients' offices, or heading into wherever I was going, and I just had this vague sensation that I was in the wrong place, which has never happened to me before, because I've always felt, no matter how hard things have been, I've always felt like I'm in the right place.
Fantastic.
Whether I'm writing or making movies or teaching or raising my kids, I've always felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. And it was the first time in my life, and again, I would have been in my early 40s, where I started thinking, I'm in the wrong place. This isn't right. Why am I doing this? And getting up and going to work every day and thinking, why am I doing this? I'm sure that's a pretty common sensation for people with jobs. But when you're self-employed, and you're asking yourself, why am I going to work? That's a big problem.
Then you've got to go and really take
then you've got to kind of go, whoa, hang on a minute,
But do you know what, though? I think a lot of people who aren't very happy aren't necessarily noticing and aren't asking why.
Well, I think unhappiness is a bit like rust.
Oh, no, yeah.
It just slowly but surely eats away at you, and often, it kind of takes things to go horribly wrong before you realise that, whereas, again, for me, I am a relentlessly cheerful person.
I'll say.
Yes. Well, a friend of mine refers to me as a little rubber duck floating on the river of shit, which,
It's not a river of shit.
No. But I am. I'm relentlessly and annoyingly cheerful. Like, I really do bug my friends with my...
That's why I've moved in. I share space with Monica at 66 Oxford Street in Darlinghurst.
You should
drop in sometime if you ever need it cheering up. And there's also biscuits available.
Yes, there's many biscuits. Wendy, our wonderful business manager, ensures that there are always plentiful supply of biscuits. It is a cheery little place, isn't it? It's quite noisy as well. Cheery and noisy, that's what I sort of try to bear.
Natural light.
Yes, beautiful.
Yes.
But yeah, so if I start to feel unhappy, I think, well, okay, the rust is setting in. That's not okay. I don't want to be rusty. Why am I unhappy? What's going on? And I've made some radical decisions in my life in order to be happy. I left a relationship with 3 young children, and I closed down a production business even though it was doing okay. And I've taken. I'm not afraid to take risks in order to be happy.
That's big.
But I lay all of the responsibility for my courage on that front to my mother, who basically, from the minute I was born, just encouraged me to do whatever I could and made me believe that if I failed at something, that I was smart enough to work out how to get out of it, and if I succeeded at something, that it was because I was clever. Nothing was attributed to luck. Nothing was attributed to...
No agendas.
Nothing. It was just, yes, you're lucky in lots of ways, but you're a hard worker and you're a smart kid and you'll figure it out. She is the wind beneath my wings. So everything I do, I should dedicate to her, because I've now realised that having a parent or, like I said, a teacher or a mentor, someone that you look up to and admire, say to you, you can actually do this, is one of the most valuable things that a human can hear, and so few humans hear it.
That's right. That's right. So what advice would you be giving to the kid coming out of art school or whatever?
Well, I think the most important thing that I'm always trying to get people to understand is to work out what they want. Because once
work out what you want. Start from that point.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a unique idea.
Yeah, if you don't know what you want, then no one can help you to get it. A lot of people know what they don't want, but it's about pivoting that away and going, well, I know I don't want to be a mathematician or a horse trainer, so what do I want? You know, and I mean, freelancers who are listening will laugh at that, because that's always the vexing conversation with the clients, you know, and clients say, well, I know what I don't want, and you just think, oh God, face palm. But once you know what you want and you're brave enough to pursue it, then everything gets a lot easier in some ways. Well, I mean, then you actually have the hard work of trying to get there.
Yep.
But, you know, I think I spend an enormous amount of time talking to young people and talking to clients about how to set goals and how to work out what you want and how to understand what you do have control over and what you don't, and how to, you know, improve your mental health by focusing on the things that you do have some control over and not worrying about the stuff that you can't control, you know, and constantly kind of checking in with yourself all the time and saying, am I happy? Am I getting what I want? Am I heading in the direction that I want? I'm not sure. Okay. You know, I think, you know, I recommend frequent business retreats, we call them.
Yes.
You know, meetings with yourself. Because I've never had a job, I sort of just invented what I thought jobs were. So, you know, like the Monday morning meeting is a classic example. I've had a Monday morning meeting every Monday morning, or as close to it, Tuesday morning or Sunday night or whatever, to sort of frame my week and check in with myself and reevaluate my goals and make a to-do list. And I've done that for 28 years.
Okay.
Most of that time by myself. Having a meeting by myself is a little bit Flight of the Conchords, you know.
It's good to know.
Yeah,
so
but
this is the stuff. How
that's
have
right.
you managed to do what you've done?
That's the practical part.
Absolutely.
Half an hour with a cup of coffee every Monday morning, just saying, right, what do I want? What do I want isn't just a big kind of life-affirming question that you ask yourself when you're just about to finish high school. What do I want should be the question you ask yourself every day. And then, how do I get it? And third, how do I get it without hurting other people? So if you know what you want, and you can work out how to get it, and if in the process of getting it you can enrich someone else's life, then I figure you've probably nailed it.
Got the trifecta.
Yeah, that's about the best day you can have, really.
That's good. So what's 2018 looking like for you, Monica?
Well, I'm going through a period of transition, I have to be honest, and it's really exciting because today my daughter is doing her final HSC exam.
Wow.
And she is my last child to finish school.
Big one.
So I have spent the last 20 years of my life not only working out what I want, but also raising 3 other people to figure out what they want.
That's cool.
And all 3 of them are finishing school as of today, which is
so
just overwhelming. All done. They're all done.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're not triplets.
No. I've got an older one and twins.
Okay.
But they're all
you've
finished.
Got twins. So
yes.
yeah.
Yep, they're all finished.
Oh man.
And they're all going to be adults in a couple of months. And I've got 6 weeks until Christmas, which is terrifying, and then I'm taking a whole bunch of time off over the summer to go travelling with my family.
Oh my God.
And then 2018, fantastic. I think I just get to figure out what I want again.
What you want
without,
in a big way this time.
Yes, but the last 20 years has been what do you want, and also how do you look after children.
Right. Yeah. What's for dinner?
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
What's for dinner, Mum?
It's just mind-boggling, and again, parents will understand. You know, it's a mind-boggling gift to have a whole week, let alone a whole year or the next 20 years of. Do you mean I don't have to pick someone up or mend something or buy something or cook something? Like, honestly, I just get to think about myself. Oh my God! So yeah,
we do love your kids.
Oh no, we love you, but also be adults
to free up the headspace around.
That's
that.
absolutely it. Yeah. Oh yeah, of course I'm still going to take care of them when they need me, but I don't think I don't think people realise how much of a parent's brain is actually just solely given over to the caretaking of other humans. And it's, you know, it like basically fills up your whole brain when you have a baby, and then as the years roll on it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And now it's just like this little ante-room off the side of my ear here where I just go, oh, kids, that's right. But, you know, if you've done your job properly, they should know how to look after themselves by now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the answer to what does 2018 look like is exciting. It looks exciting. I'm going to have a finished movie. I'm going to have a successful business. I'm going to have 3 kids that not at school anymore. I don't know, Jane.
And what will happen with the movie? Do you have to negotiate distribution?
Yeah, we're doing
all
that
those
now.
businessy things?
So
Yeah.
it's just one of those great catch-22s where, you know, it's just taken just a massive effort of will on behalf of me and Phoebe Hart, the producer, and all the people who've been involved with the film just to get it to this point. 3 crowdfunds, 12 years of work. It's just been madness.
12 years of work.
Yeah, I started it 12 years ago.
Wow.
The last 5 years have been the most productive of those 12, but it's just, it's a long and torturous journey.
Talk about resilience. That's...
Well, or madness. It's very difficult to see the difference until you actually get to the end.
That's right.
But we're hoping that it'll be finished by February. These last little bells and whistles. So we've got 4 months to get it finished, and then we're hoping that it will go into the film festival circuit first. And I'd like to see it do queer festivals and so-called and straight festivals. And then we're hoping to get a broadcast or online distribution, or who knows. You know, by that stage, that's the film equivalent of my baby leaving home.
Absolutely.
So I've got 4 babies finishing childhood, 3 actual humans, and a film.
Big deal. It's like you're graduating.
Yeah,
in a way,
I know, but it's so
You're
weird because I sort of
moving.
felt I'd feel more grown up at this point, but I don't feel like a grown up at all. So, you know, it's all right. I'll keep being the yellow rubber duck.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Seems to have worked out quite well so far.
You're
so.
doing a brilliant job. Yes. Well, look, we're going to start to wind up. I'm really glad that I've been able to get you on, Monica, because
Thank you,
you're
Jane.
giving people the view from the other side, as it were,
Wow.
and you haven't kind of tizzied it up at all. There's
it's
a
hard
sense
work.
here that's right, and you've had support.
Yeah.
And I don't think mindset's even a big enough word for it, but you've got an attitude that has always been about.
Well, Mum was right. If
Doing
you
it.
are smart, you can figure it out.
Yep.
I was lucky in that I was born smart and I had some talent. And I was lucky enough to have a mother that believed in me, and I've worked my ass off too. So, you know, but also, you know, when I've been unlucky, I've tried to fix it, you know.
And I'm just now wondering what I do to end the program, Sheena.
Should we have a dance? Should we
Because
do a
I
little
want,
bit of
I
interpretive
want to
dance?
say, though, before we do it, an important message for people is, how do they find you?
Oh, well, if you want to find out more about the movie, that's handbagthemovie.com, which is
Brilliant.
pretty easy. We have a website with trailers and snippets of the movie and a place where you can donate money if you feel so inclined. If you're a creative person that wants help with your business, creativeplusbusiness.com. And although we do have commercial services, the reason I suggest people visit our website is because it's packed with free stuff.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. I'll say the one thing about you in business, that a lot of people starting out are potentially jaded in terms of help being offered, and then it's really just a sales pitch to then spend $10,000 on this program, and this is absolutely not where you come from.
Yeah, I went the
And
other way. I
the
thought
resources are phenomenal.
Well, thank you,
it's
Jane.
Definitely
Yeah,
definitely worth hopping on.
I'm selling an exciting idea. I'm selling the idea that you can make money doing something that you love.
Yes.
And so I have to be very careful to make sure that I don't exploit anyone while I'm doing that.
Sure.
So transparency all the way.
Yeah. And of course, I'd like to see you all join us again at 9 a.m. next Tuesday, that's Sydney time, for your creative journey. Every week I'm going to have a guest just like Monica, but different.
Same but different.
who will talk about I've got someone who's been developing video games, who's been, I've got someone who's been writing script for years and years and years, and has a wonderful film just ready to, not at your stage of readiness, but pretty darn ready to come out, and it's another piece of an iconic Sydney story. I've got authors who are doing my program, so you'll be hearing a lot about great books that are going to be coming out in 2018, and we're just going to move forward. Any feedback you have for me, I would love. So post it on the Facebook page, and if you're not watching through Facebook, if you're listening to us, then you might want to hop on to the Bondi Radio Facebook page, because you can catch up on anything you've missed, and there are some great shows coming on board with Bondi Radio. Some really exciting things are happening. So I'll say over and out for now. We'll see you next week.